Away from our neighborhood. Away from streets where people knew me as Mark's wife. I drove for 40 minutes watching our suburb fade into countryside and then into a small town I'd never been to before. Lubbock. Population 8,000 according to the sign on Route 9. Main Street had the kind of storefronts you see in postcards. Brick buildings, striped awnings, a hardware store with its name painted on the window in gold letters. I parked and walked without knowing where I was going. Just walked. Past a bookstore. A pharmacy. An antique shop with furniture crowding the sidewalk. Then I saw it. Corner Cup Cafe. The name was painted on the window in faded letters. A for sale sign was taped inside, edges curling away from the glass. I stopped walking. Stood there on the sidewalk staring at it. The place looked half dead. Through the grimy window I could see mismatched chairs around small tables. A counter with a coffee machine that looked older than me. Menu boards with prices written in marker that had started to fade and smear. But there was something about the morning light coming through those east-facing windows. Something about the way the door sat slightly crooked in its frame. I pushed the door open. It stuck. I had to push harder and it gave with a scraping sound that probably should have been fixed years ago. A woman looked up from wiping down tables. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. Tired eyes that had seen too many slow days in a dying business. "We're closing in 10 minutes, she said. Not rude. Just factual. But I can get you coffee if you want. Is this place really for sale?" She set down her rag. Studied me for a moment. "You interested in buying a failing cafe?" "Maybe." She laughed. Not a happy sound. "Owner died 6 months ago. Heart attack right there behind the counter. His kids want to sell. Get it off their hands. They live in Florida. Don't want to deal with it." "How much are they asking?" $38,000. For everything. Equipment, lease, business name, whatever inventory's left. She picked up her rag again. "Place hasn't turned a profit in 3 years. You'd be buying a headache." I looked around. Counted 8 tables. The counter had 6 stools, only 4 of them matching. The coffee machine had a crack running down the side. The floor tiles were coming up in the corners. "Can I get that coffee?" I asked. Her name was Rita. She'd worked there for 18 years. Longer than I'd worked at Dawson's. She made me coffee in a chipped mug and didn't charge me for it. We sat at the table by the window and she told me about the place. How it used to be good. How the owner, Jerry, had stopped caring after his wife died. How customers had slowly stopped coming when the quality dropped and nothing got fixed. "Why do you stay?" I asked. Rita shrugged. "Habit, I guess. Don't know what else I do. I'm 58. Who's hiring 58-year-old waitresses?" I knew that feeling. That sense of being too old, too far removed, too unemployable. I drove home thinking about those east-facing windows. That crooked door. Rita's tired eyes. Mark came home after 9 that night. Smelled like beer and something sweet. Perfume maybe. He blamed it on happy hour with coworkers. Microwaved the dinner I'd left covered on the stove. Ate it in front of the TV without saying a word to me. I lay in bed that night doing math in my head. 45,000 from Graham. 38 for the cafe. 7,000 left for operating costs. Supplies. Maybe 1 month of safety net if things went wrong. It was insane. I hadn't worked in 2 years. I didn't know anything about running a food business. The equipment was old. The location was 40 minutes away. I'd have to lie to Mark every single day. But I knew retail. Knew inventory management. Employee scheduling. Customer service. Profit margins. I'd turned around 3 struggling departments at Dawson's. This was just smaller. More personal. I could do this. The next morning after Mark left for work, I called the lawyer handling the estate. Asked questions. Could I see the books? Was Rita included in the sale? What were the lease terms? The lawyer laughed when I asked about books. "Lady, the old man ran everything on napkins and kept cash in a coffee can. You want to see the books? I can show you a shoebox full of receipts." I bought it anyway. Used my maiden name on all the paperwork. Set up an LLC. Mitchell Enterprises. Had the mail sent to a P.O. box in Millbrook that I rented under the same name. Bought a prepaid phone and hid it in my car, buried under the spare tire in the trunk where Mark would never think to look. The lying got easier with practice. The inheritance was still tied up. Lawyers were slow. These things took time. Mark believed me because I'd never given him reason not to. The hard part was the fear. I told Mark I'd joined an early morning prayer group at church. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 a.m. He barely looked up from his laptop when I said it. Didn't ask which church or who led the group or why I'd suddenly gotten religious at dawn. The first morning I drove to Millbrook to open the cafe, my hands shook so hard on the steering wheel I almost turned back. It was 4 in the morning. Still dark. The roads were empty. I felt like a criminal. Like someone would see me and know I was lying. No, I was sneaking around. No, I wasn't the obedient wife Mark had spent 2 years creating. Rita was already there when I pulled into the parking lot, standing by her car with 2 coffee cups from the gas station down the street. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she walked over and handed me one of the cups. "You're really doing this," she said. Not a question. I nodded. Couldn't quite speak yet. "Okay then." She pulled out a set of keys. "Let's get started." We went inside together. Rita showed me how everything worked. The coffee maker needed 3 taps on the left side to start brewing. Had to be exactly 3. 2 didn't work. 4 made it overflow. The sandwich press only heated properly if you held the handle down for the first 30 seconds. The cash register stuck on the number 7 every single time. "Jerry kept meaning to fix that," Rita said. "Never got around to it." The place was falling apart. The walk-in cooler made a grinding sound. The bathroom door didn't latch properly. Half the light bulbs were burned out. But it was mine. For the first time in 2 years I had something that belonged to me. Not to Mark. Not to us. To me. Rita didn't ask why I was using my maiden name. Didn't ask why I jumped every time the door chimed. Didn't ask why I kept checking my phone like I was expecting bad news. She just said, "We open in 20 minutes. You know how to make a latte?" I didn't. He taught me. By 9:30 that morning, I'd served 42 customers. Burned my hand twice on the steam wand. Forgotten someone's order and had to remake their sandwich. Said, "I'm sorry" more times than I could count. But I'd done it. I'd opened a business. Run a shift. Made it through. I drove home with burns on my hands and coffee stains on my shirt and my heart beating fast with something that felt like hope. Mark was still asleep when I got there. Mark was in the shower when I came through the door that first morning. I could hear the water running upstairs. Smell his cologne mixing with steam. I'd been awake for 5.5 hours. My hands smelled like coffee grounds and had 2 fresh burns from the steam wand. My back ached from being on my feet since 4:30. I was exhausted and exhilarated and terrified all at once. I changed my shirt in the laundry room. Stuffed the coffee-stained one in the bottom of the hamper. Washed my hands twice to get the smell out. By the time Mark came downstairs I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking like I'd just woken up. "How was prayer group?" he asked, pouring himself coffee from the pot I'd made. "Good," I said. "Peaceful." He nodded. Didn't ask anything else. Didn't wonder why I'd showered before leaving the house at 4:30 in the morning. Didn't notice the exhaustion I was trying to hide behind my teacup. That became my life. 3:45 wake-ups. Dressing in the dark while he snored off whatever he'd drunk the night before. Driving 40 minutes to Millbrook with the prepaid phone hidden in my purse. Opening the cafe at 4:30. Working until 9. Driving home. Pretending I'd been at church or running errands or doing anything except what I'd actually been doing. The first year nearly killed me. Rita and I worked alone most days. Just the 2 of us managing everything. I learned to make lattes and cappuccinos and macchiatos. Learned which customers wanted to chat and which ones wanted to be left alone with their coffee. Learned to prep sandwich ingredients so we wouldn't run out during the lunch rush. Learned to work the ancient cash register that still stuck on the number 7. Our morning regulars became familiar faces. Construction workers who came in at 5 for coffee before heading to job sites. Nurses finishing night shifts at the county hospital, looking exhausted in their scrubs. Truck drivers passing through on Route 9 who said our coffee was better than the chain places. There was Frank, a 68-year-old retired mechanic who came in every morning at 6. He told me once that my coffee was better than his ex-wife's, and I could tell he meant it as the highest compliment he could give. There was Linda, a hospice nurse who worked overnight and stopped in at 7:30 on her way home. She always ordered the same thing. Large coffee, light and sweet, and a blueberry muffin. There was David, who drove trucks and knew our hours because he'd pass through Millbrook every Tuesday and Thursday around 5:15. They started calling me Ms. Mitchell, asking how my day was going, telling me about their lives. I was someone again. Not just Mark's wife. Not just the woman who used to work at Dawson's. I was Ms. Mitchell who ran the cafe and remembered your order and asked about your sick dog. The cafe made maybe $300 on a good day that first year. After paying Rita, restocking supplies and covering the lease, I'd clear $50 profit if I was lucky. Some days we lost money. Some days I'd drive home wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But I kept going. Mark noticed I was losing weight. Mentioned it one night over dinner. "You look good," he said. "Different." I did look different. The early mornings and physical work had stripped away the weight I'd gained. I was sleeping better despite the exhaustion. Had color in my face again. "Must be all that volunteering," I said. He nodded. Went back to his food. What he didn't notice was that I was waking up at 3:45 every morning. That I was gone before dawn. That I came home smelling like coffee even though I'd changed my shirt and washed my hands. He didn't notice because he'd started staying out later. Coming home after 10, sometimes after 11. Smelling like cigarette smoke and something sweet I couldn't quite identify. When I asked where he'd been, he'd say happy hour with coworkers. Office thing. You wouldn't understand. I stopped asking. Instead, I started checking our joint account. Not every day. Just occasionally. Carefully. Making sure to clear the browser history after. That's when I saw the withdrawals. $1,500. $3,000. $2,500. Always in round numbers. Always with no explanation. One night I asked him about it. Kept my voice casual. Light. I noticed some money came out of our savings. What was that for? His face changed. Got hard in a way I wasn't used to seeing. Investment opportunities through the office, he said. You wouldn't understand the details. I'd like to understand. Sarah. He said my name like a warning. I'm the one who works. I'm the one who makes the money. I think I can decide how to invest it without getting permission from someone who hasn't had a job in 3 years. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Let it drop. But I started keeping records. A little notebook hidden in my car. Every withdrawal he made, I wrote it down. Date. Amount. His excuse if he gave one. $15,000 disappeared that first year. $15,000 from our joint savings while I was working 80-hour weeks to build something he knew nothing about. I said nothing. What could I say without revealing I was checking the accounts? Without explaining why I wasn't panicking about money when I supposedly had no income? The secret I was keeping had walls built from other secrets. Month 14, I hired my first employee besides Rita. Her name was Jasmine. 29 years old with a 3-year-old daughter. She came in for the interview wearing jeans that had been washed so many times they were nearly white. Shirt with a small stain on the collar she tried to hide with a cardigan. She sat across from me at one of the cafe tables and her hands shook when she filled out the application. I haven't worked in 4 years, she said. My ex said he'd support us. Then he left. Stopped paying child support. I've been applying everywhere but nobody calls back. I looked at her application. High school diploma. Some community college. Previous experience as a waitress before her daughter was born. When can you start? I asked. She blinked. You're hiring me? $12 an hour. Tips split evenly between everyone working that shift. Can you do mornings? 6 to noon. She started crying. Right there at the table. Said yes through the tears. Said thank you about 15 times. Rita took her under her wing the way she'd taken me. Taught her the systems. Showed her how to handle the difficult customers with grace. Jasmine was good. Fast learner. Kind to people. Her daughter's daycare was 2 blocks away, so she could walk there after her shift. Then came Bobby. 42 years old. Line cook. Came in asking if we were hiring and I almost said no because we didn't really need anyone else yet. Then he mentioned he'd just gotten out. 3 years for possession. Couldn't find work anywhere because of his record. I can cook, he said. I'm good at it. I just need someone to give me a chance. I hired him for kitchen work. $10 an hour to start. He showed up 15 minutes early to every single shift. Never complained. Made breakfast sandwiches that were so good people started coming in just for those. Maria came next. 52 years old. From Guatemala. Her English was rough but her baking was perfect. She made bread the way Graham used to, by feel not measuring. She had 3 kids. Husband had left her 6 months earlier. Disappeared back to Guatemala and left her with nothing. These people became my family. My real family. The ones who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from nothing. They figured out pretty quickly that something wasn't normal about my situation. The way I jumped every time the door chimed. How I never answered my personal phone in front of them. The fact that I insisted they call me Ms. Mitchell, never Sarah. Rita pulled me aside one morning during a slow period. "Honey," she said quietly, "I don't need to know your business. But we've got your back. Whatever you're running from or hiding from, you're safe here." I almost cried. Instead, I just nodded and went back to wiping down tables. By the end of year 2, the cafe was actually making money. Real money. I'd repainted the walls a warm cream color. Replaced the broken equipment. Updated the menu with items Bobby suggested. Fixed the bathroom door and the grinding walk-in cooler and even the cash register that stuck on 7. We were making $700 on weekdays. $1,000 on Saturdays. After expenses and payroll and everything else, I was clearing $6,000 a month. That's when I started looking at the second location. Another failing cafe in Millbrook. Owner was retiring. Wanted $18,000 for it. I had $22,000 in my business account by then. Rita said I was crazy to expand so fast. "You're barely 2 years in," she said. "You should wait. Build up more savings." But I'd spent 12 years in retail management. I knew how to scale. Knew when to grow. I bought it. Put Jasmine in charge. She cried again when I told her. Within 6 months, both locations were profitable. I was making more money than I'd ever made at Dawson's. More than Mark made in his fancy account manager job. And he had no idea. He thought I was volunteering at church. Doing book club on Thursday nights. Maybe running errands. He had no idea I was running 2 businesses 40 minutes away in a town where nobody knew Mrs. Mark Parker existed. By year 7, I'd opened 4 locations. The original cafe, the second one Jasmine managed, a third near the hospital that did brisk business with medical staff, and a fourth by the highway that caught travelers and truckers. I had 32 employees. I was clearing $12,000 a month in owner's draw. Mark still had no idea. I'd gotten better at the lying. Better at the logistics. I worked the opening shift at the original location 6 days a week, 4:30 to 9:30, then spent a few hours rotating between the other locations. Checking in. Handling problems. Meeting with suppliers. I told Mark I'd expanded my volunteering. Church food bank. Library programs. Meals on Wheels. He never questioned it. Never asked for details. Never seemed to notice or care how I spent my days. He was staying out later. Coming home after midnight some nights. I'd be in bed pretending to sleep when he'd stumble in, smelling like smoke and alcohol and something floral I couldn't place. On a Wednesday in November I was doing laundry. Going through pockets before washing like I always did. Mark's work pants. I pulled out a crumpled receipt and almost tossed it without looking. Something made me unfold it. Riverside Casino. 3 days ago. Dinner for 2. $87. 2 glasses of champagne. 1 ribeye steak. 1 salmon. I stood there in our laundry room holding that piece of paper and something cold settled in my chest. Mark had told me he was working late on Monday. Project deadline. Wouldn't be home until 10. I stared at the receipt. 2 glasses of champagne. We hadn't had champagne together in 4 years. I'd suggested it once for our anniversary. Mark had said it was too expensive. Said we needed to watch our spending. Be responsible. But he'd bought champagne for someone else. I checked his other pants. The khakis from last week. The jeans from the weekend. 2 more receipts. Different dates. Same restaurant. Same casino. Always dinner for 2. Always expensive. I sat down on the laundry room floor with those 3 receipts spread in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. The money wasn't what hurt. I'd been secretly refilling our joint account with transfers from my business to cover his gambling withdrawals. I knew he was burning through our savings. Had been for years. But this felt different. This was deliberate. Planned. He was taking someone to dinner. Buying champagne. Spending money he claimed we didn't have on a woman who wasn't me. I didn't confront him that night. Or the next day. Instead I started watching. Really watching. He'd come home and shower immediately. Even on nights when he claimed he'd been at the office. Who showers after sitting at a desk? There was new cologne in our bathroom cabinet. Expensive stuff. I'd never bought it. When I asked him about it, he said it was a gift from a coworker. For his birthday. His birthday had been 6 months ago. He'd started using breath mints. Kept a tin in his car. Another in his jacket pocket. Mark had never cared about his breath before. Now he was 54 years old and suddenly worried about it. The pieces were all there. I'd just been too busy building my businesses to put them together. 2 weeks after I found the receipts, I checked our joint account. Another withdrawal. $22,000. Gone. In one transaction. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screen on my laptop. $22,000. Our savings was almost empty now. When Mark came home that evening, I kept my voice calm. Light. Casual. I saw a withdrawal from our savings. $22,000. What was that for? His face changed. Got red. Angry. My mother needs emergency surgery, he snapped. How dare you question me about taking care of my own mother? Do you think I'm lying to you? I said nothing. Just looked at him. I can't believe you'd make this about money, he continued. My mother is sick and you're worried about the account balance. That's unbelievable, Sarah. Really unbelievable. I'm sorry, I said quietly. You're right. I shouldn't have asked. He nodded. Accepted my apology like it was his due. Went upstairs to change for dinner. I sat there at the kitchen table. His mother had been dead for 6 years. Died of pneumonia in a nursing home in Florida. We'd gone to the funeral together. He was lying to my face and didn't even care enough to make it believable anymore. I went upstairs. Sat on the edge of our bed. Thought about 7 years of waking up at 3:45. 7 years of burns on my hands and aching feet and pretending to be someone I wasn't. 7 years of building something while he destroyed everything. The next morning at the cafe, Rita took one look at my face and poured me coffee without asking. Added extra cream the way I liked it. Set it in front of me and squeezed my shoulder. You okay, honey? I nodded. Couldn't quite speak yet. She didn't push. Just went back to prepping for the morning rush. That's when I decided I needed to know for sure. Not a private investigator. I couldn't afford that. Couldn't risk the paper trail. Couldn't have Mark finding out I was checking on him. But Emma could help. Our neighbor's daughter. 16 years old. Worked part-time at my third location after school. Sweet kid. Good grades. Saving for college. I'd written her a reference letter for her applications. She called me Aunt Sarah when her parents weren't around. One afternoon during her shift, I asked her casually about the neighborhood. If she'd seen Mr. Parker much lately. She got quiet. Looked down at the register she was restocking with receipt paper. Ms. Mitchell, she said carefully, there's something I should probably tell you. She pulled out her phone. Opened her photos. Showed me. Mark's car in our driveway on a Thursday afternoon. 2:15 p.m. When he should have been at work. A woman getting into the passenger seat. Blonde hair. Young. Maybe early 30s. Another photo. Same woman leaving our house 2 hours later. 3 more photos. Different days. Same pattern. I wasn't trying to spy, Emma said quickly. But I walk home from school past your house and I kept seeing her. And I thought you should know. In case you didn't know. I'm sorry. I looked at those photos. This girl had been documenting my husband's affair for 3 months. Taking pictures because she thought I should know. Because she cared enough to protect me. Thank you, I managed to say. Can you send these to me? She did. To my business phone. The prepaid one Mark didn't know existed. That night I waited until Mark was in the shower. Went through his phone. The password was still my birthday. Had been for 12 years. I opened his messages. Hundreds of texts from a contact saved as Br. Brittany, I assumed. I scrolled through them. Didn't read every word. Couldn't. But I read enough. Plans to leave me. Discussions about timing. About how much money he'd get in the divorce. She's so boring, Brittany had written. She doesn't even have a job. What does she do all day? Mark's response, I know. You're right. I deserve better. Someone who actually contributes something. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Went downstairs. Made myself a cup of tea. My hands weren't shaking. That's what surprised me most. I'd expected to fall apart. To cry. To feel destroyed. Yet I felt calm. Clear. I'd spent 7 years building something while he destroyed everything we had. 7 years being afraid of losing him. Losing our life. Losing my security. But sitting there in our kitchen at 11 o'clock at night, I realized something. I had nothing left to lose. I'd already lost it all years ago when he made me quit my job. When he started controlling every dollar. When he turned me into someone small and invisible. I just hadn't been ready to admit it until now. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. I sat in our kitchen until 3 in the morning, drinking tea that had gone cold, thinking about 7 years of lies and what came next. When my alarm went off at 3:45, I was already dressed. The drive to Millbrook felt different that morning. lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying something heavy and had finally set it down. Rita was waiting in the parking lot like always. She took one look at my face and said, "What happened?" "I'll tell you later," I said. "Let's just get through the morning rush first." We opened at 4:30. Served the usual crowd. Frank with his black coffee and newspaper. Linda the night nurse with her light and sweet and blueberry muffin. David the truck driver passing through on his Tuesday route. Normal. Everything was normal except nothing would ever be normal again. By 9:30 the morning rush had cleared. Rita poured us both coffee and sat across from me at the corner table. "Talk," she said. I told her everything. The receipts. The photos Emma had taken. Going through Mark's phone. The text messages. Brittany. Rita listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Good riddance," she said simply. I almost laughed. "That's it? That's your advice? Honey, I watched you build this place from nothing. Watched you work yourself half to death while that man sat at home doing nothing. You don't need advice. You already know what you're going to do." He was right. I did know. The divorce papers arrived on a Monday morning in March. 3 weeks after I'd found the receipts. 2 weeks after Emma showed me the photos. I'd just gotten home from my opening shift. Still had coffee stains on my fingers. I was pulling into our driveway when a man in a polo shirt walked up to my car window. "Sarah Parker?" "Yes. You've been served." He handed me a manila envelope. Waited while I signed his clipboard. Then he got back in his car and drove away. I sat there in my driveway and opened the envelope. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I read through the paperwork slowly. Mark was asking for the house. Both cars. Half of any retirement accounts or hidden assets. And alimony. Alimony. From me. From the woman he thought had been sitting home doing nothing for 10 years. His lawyer had included a statement. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Mrs. Parker has been voluntarily unemployed for a decade. She has no marketable skills or employment prospects. She is financially dependent and incapable of self-support. Given her age and extended absence from the workforce, she will require significant spousal support to maintain even a minimal standard of living. I sat there in my car and started laughing. I couldn't help it. The irony was so perfect it was almost beautiful. Mark thought I was unemployable. Thought I was helpless. Thought I'd been doing nothing for 10 years while he supported us. I laughed until tears ran down my face. Mark came home 2 hours later. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the papers spread in front of me. He walked in looking nervous. Guilty. Like a kid caught doing something wrong. "Sarah," he started. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Not sorry for cheating. Not sorry for lying. Not sorry for the affair or the gambling or any of it. Just sorry I'd found out through legal papers instead of him telling me himself. I think this is best for both of us," he continued when I didn't say anything. "We've grown apart. You deserve someone who can make you happy." I almost laughed again. He was using therapy language. Making it sound mutual. Like we'd both decided this together. "When are you moving out?" I asked. He looked relieved. "This week. I've already started packing. I'll get the rest of my stuff over the next few days." "Where are you going?" "Staying with a friend. Until we figure everything out." "A friend. Right." He moved out on Thursday. Packed his clothes and his golf clubs and the TV from the living room. I helped him carry boxes to his car. Didn't fight. Didn't cry. Didn't beg him to stay. He seemed almost giddy with how easy I was making it. "We can be adults about this," he said, loading the last box into his trunk. "Split things fairly. No reason to make it ugly. Whatever you think is fair," I said. He smiled. Actually smiled. Then he kissed my forehead like I was a child. "You'll be okay," he said. "Maybe you can get a job at Target or something. Get back on your feet." I watched him drive away. Stood in our driveway until his car disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and called Patricia Chin. Patricia was 63 years old. Sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued. Her daughter Amy worked at my fourth location. Had been working there for 8 months. Amy had mentioned once that her mother was a lawyer who specialized in family law. I'd filed that information away without thinking much about it. Now I needed it. Patricia answered on the second ring. "This is Patricia." "Miss Chin, this is Sarah Mitchell. Amy's boss from the cafe. I need a lawyer." There was a pause. "What kind of lawyer?" "Divorce." "Come to my office. 2 o'clock today." Bring the papers. She took my case after hearing 5 minutes of the story. Said she'd seen men like Mark before. Said she'd handled her own ugly divorce 15 years ago and knew exactly how this would play out. He thinks you're helpless, she said, reading through Mark's filing. His lawyer thinks you're helpless. They're going to push for a quick settlement. Pressure you to take whatever